I didn't think staying over at Liam's place would feel like crossing some invisible line, but it did. Maybe it was because we hadn't had a sleepover since middle school, back when our biggest concern was who got the better controller for Mario Kart. Now we were 20, both in college, and somehow the idea of sharing the same roof overnight felt heavier. Like a throwback, but also something new, threaded with the kind of tension I kept pretending I didn't notice. I had known Liam since we were kids, neighbors, classmates, teammates. The kind of friend who slipped seamlessly into every version of my life. He was the one who dragged me out of the house when I wanted to brood in my room, the one who always laughed too loud at his own dumb jokes, the one who made silence comfortable instead of awkward. And inconveniently, he was also the one whose smile I couldn't seem to shake from my head lately. His house smelled faintly of cedar and laundry detergent, a comforting mix that felt unmistakably him. I tried not to overthink it as I tossed my backpack near the guest room door. His old room, technically, but now more of a storage space since he moved into the basement for privacy. His parents were out of town for the weekend, leaving the house strangely quiet, except for the low hum of the fridge in the kitchen and Liam's voice drifting down the hallway. "You still take forever to unpack, huh?" he called, leaning against the doorframe with that lopsided grin of his. He'd filled out since high school, broad shoulders, a little scruff on his jaw, and I hated how my chest tightened when I noticed. "Some of us like to be organized," I shot back, shoving a hoodie onto the bed as if that proved my point. He just laughed, the sound warm and familiar. "Right. Organized. Sure." It was easy being around him. Too easy. That was the problem. I could almost forget the way my stomach knotted every time his hand brushed mine, or how my pulse jumped when his gaze lingered a second too long. Almost. As he wandered off toward the kitchen, I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the framed photo on the dresser. Us at 16, mud-streaked and grinning after a soccer match. His arm was slung casually around my shoulders, and even in the picture I looked like I was trying not to lean into him too much. Something about being back here in his house felt like the past folding in on the present. Nostalgia, yes, but also a sense that things were about to shift, that maybe this weekend would blur the line I'd been so carefully walking for years. And part of me, the reckless part one usually shoved down, wanted it too. Liam returned with 2 bottles of soda, tossing one my way with that careless accuracy he always had. I caught it, barely, and gave him a mock glare. "You're going to take out my eye one day," I said. "Yeah, but think about the story. Blinded in a tragic cola incident. People would buy me drinks out of pity for years." I rolled my eyes, but the corner of my mouth betrayed me with a smile. That was how it always went. He said something dumb, I pretended to be annoyed, and somehow he still managed to make me laugh. We sprawled out in the living room, a half-forgotten movie playing in the background while we reminisced about high school. He brought up that time I panicked during our driving test and nearly clipped a trash can. "Nearly?" I scoffed. "I definitely clipped it. You were in the car behind me, remember? You laughed so hard you failed your own test." His laugh now was the same as it had been then, loud, unrestrained, like he didn't care who heard. It filled the room, and for a moment I forgot to breathe. That was the thing about us. Our history wasn't made up of big dramatic moments. It was small ones stitched together like a quilt. Bike rides to the gas station for slushies in the summer. Late-night video game marathons, bleary-eyed but unwilling to quit. Sitting on the curb after losing a soccer game, neither of us talking but both somehow feeling better. He was woven into every part of my life, and maybe that's why I struggled to sort out what I felt now. "Hey, you brought a sleeping bag, right?" he asked suddenly, breaking into my thoughts. I hesitated. I had forgotten. I'd been so distracted by just being here by him that I hadn't thought ahead. "I figured your house has, beds." "Yeah, but the guest bed's basically a rock. Springs poking through and everything." He leaned back, grinning wickedly. "Unless you're volunteering to share mine." He meant it as a joke, I knew he did. That was classic Liam, tossing out lines with double meanings just to get a reaction. But I felt my ears heat up all the same, and the soda in my hand suddenly seemed very interesting. "Funny," I muttered, twisting the cap. "I'll survive." His smirk softened into something gentler, and for a moment his gaze lingered on me, long enough that I wondered if maybe, just maybe, there was something behind it. Then he looked away, drumming his fingers on the coffee table. Later we wandered outside to the back porch. The summer air was thick with the smell of cut grass and the faint sweetness of honeysuckle from the fence line. Crickets sang in the distance. He leaned against the railing, sipping his soda, and I found myself watching the way the porch light caught in his hair. "Remember when we tried to camp out here?" he asked. "Middle of July, and we thought we'd be like wilderness experts. Tent collapsed in the first hour. And then it rained." I said, grinning at the memory. We'd ended up soaked, shivering, and laughing so hard we couldn't breathe, sneaking back inside before his mom caught us. That was the best, he said, smiling at the sky like he could still see that night. Then he glanced at me. Feels kind of the same now, doesn't it? I swallowed, suddenly aware of how close we were standing. His arm brushed mine lightly, a casual accident, but the warmth lingered like a brand. I didn't move. Yeah, I said softly. Kind of. For a second, neither of us spoke. The only sound was the distant hum of cars from the street, the creak of the railing under his weight, the rhythm of my pulse hammering in my ears. Then he grinned again, breaking the moment with a nudge to my shoulder. Bet you still couldn't pitch a tent if your life depended on it? Bet you still snore like a chainsaw? I shot back, grateful for the cover of banter. But the truth was, under all the jokes and easy laughter, something was shifting. I could feel it, like that first night of camping when the tent started to sag and we knew the storm was coming. Only this time, I wasn't sure if I wanted to run for cover. That night the house felt different. Quieter. Too quiet, almost like the walls were listening. We'd settled on crashing in the basement, his space, his rules. The guest room upstairs really did have a mattress like stone, and Liam, in his usual way, had waved off the problem like it wasn't a big deal. You'll sleep on the couch, he'd said. It's basically a bed anyway. Super comfy. And it was comfortable, big, soft cushions, enough room to stretch out. But it was also only a few feet from his bed. Close enough that I could see the rise and fall of his chest in the dim light from the small lamp by his desk. Close enough that every time he shifted, the sound seemed amplified in the silence. I lay there staring at the ceiling, my mind buzzing. It should have been like old times, two friends staying up too late, joking until we fell asleep mid-sentence. But the air between us was thicker now, charged in a way I couldn't name out loud. You awake? Liam's voice broke the quiet. I swallowed, trying to keep my tone casual. Yeah. He rolled onto his side, facing me. Even in the half-light, I could see the outline of his grin. Figures. You've always been the restless one. That's rich, coming from the guy who once stayed up all night because a cricket got into his room. He chuckled, low and warm. That thing was loud. Like, unreasonably loud. I smiled despite myself. Banter was our safety net. As long as we were joking, I didn't have to think about the way his gaze lingered on me just a little too long. A moment passed. He shifted again, the bed creaking softly. Hey, he said, quieter now. You cold? I blinked. No. You sound cold. I don't even know what that means. He tossed his blanket off with a dramatic sigh. You're hopeless. Then, before I could react, he got up, crossed the few steps between us, and dropped the blanket onto me. His hand brushed my shoulder as he tucked it around me without asking, and I froze. The touch was nothing, brief, casual. But it burned. Better? He asked, standing there, looking down at me with that half-smile. Yeah, I said quickly, my voice softer than I intended. For a second, neither of us moved. Then he gave a small nod, like something had been settled, and climbed back into bed. I lay there clutching the blanket like it was a lifeline, my heart hammering. It smelled faintly like him, cedar shampoo, detergent, something warm and familiar. I buried my face in it before I could stop myself. Minutes ticked by. I thought he'd fallen asleep until his voice drifted across the room again. You ever think about how different things feel now? My breath caught. Different how? He hesitated, like he was weighing whether to say more. Finally, I don't know. Just growing up, I guess. People changing. Us changing. The words sat heavy in the space between us. Yeah, I said quietly. I think about it. The silence stretched, and for once it wasn't comfortable. It was thick with everything unsaid. I wanted to ask him what he meant. I wanted to tell him what I meant. But the words tangled in my throat, stuck behind years of fear and habit. Instead, I rolled to face him. His bed was only a few feet away, but it felt like a chasm. In the faint glow of the lamp, I could see his eyes were still open, watching me. Our gazes locked. Neither of us looked away. It should have been nothing, just two friends awake too late. But the air between us buzzed like static, charged with something I couldn't name out loud. His lips parted slightly like he might say something more, but then he just sighed and rolled onto his back. Night, he said, his voice almost a whisper. Night, I echoed. I didn't sleep. Not for a long time. Every sound he made, the shift of sheets, the soft rhythm of his breathing, kept me awake. And when the storm rolled in just past midnight, rattling the windows and flashing light across the basement walls, it was almost a relief. Something outside of me finally matched the chaos in my chest. The rain grew heavier, drumming on the roof, and then a crack of thunder shook the house. Liam groaned. Damn it. Power's out. The room went dark, the hum of the fan dying with it. I sat up. Seriously? Yup. I could hear him moving around, then bumping into something with a curse. Okay, it's officially pitch black. You good? Yeah. My voice was steadier than I felt. A shuffle of footsteps, and then suddenly he was right beside me, sitting down on the couch without warning. The cushions dipped under his weight, and I could feel the heat of him even though I couldn't see his face. Safer down here together, he muttered. In case the storm gets worse. Together. My heart tripped over the word. The storm raged outside, but in the dark basement, it felt like the real storm was between us. The closeness, the unspoken things pressing at the edges of every breath. And when his knee brushed mine under the blanket, he didn't move it away. The storm didn't let up. If anything, it only grew louder, rain hammering against the windows while thunder cracked close enough to rattle the floor beneath us. The couch dipped as Liam shifted beside me, his shoulder brushing mine again. He didn't move away this time. Neither did I. The basement was pitch black, except for the occasional flash of lightning that briefly illuminated his profile, sharp jaw, messy hair, the faint curve of his lips. Each glimpse left my chest tighter than the last, like the storm was building inside me too. We sat there in silence, the blanket pulled over both our legs now. I couldn't tell if he'd done it on purpose, or if it just happened when he sat down. But I felt every inch of it, the warmth of him seeping through the fabric, the weight of his knee resting against mine. I forgot how bad storms freak you out, Liam said quietly, his voice barely above the rain. They don't freak me out, I lied, though my voice betrayed me with the slightest tremor. He chuckled softly. Yeah, sure. He used to crawl into my bed whenever it stormed. Said it was because the basement leaked, but I knew. I felt my ears burn. I was like 10. Ah. And you snored then too. I do not snore. Lightning flashed again, and I caught the quick grin on his face before darkness swallowed it. My heart stumbled. God, how many times had I seen that smile? Hundreds? Thousands? And yet here, so close, with the storm pressing in around us, it felt like seeing it for the first time. I wanted to say something, anything, but the words wouldn't come. My throat felt tight, and the silence stretched until I couldn't stand it anymore. Liam, I said softer than I meant to. Yeah. The word trembled on my tongue. I like you. I've liked you for years. But instead I shook my head. Never mind. He didn't push, just leaned back against the couch, but I felt his gaze on me even in the dark. The storm roared, another crack of thunder splitting the night. Instinctively, I flinched closer to him, and his hand brushed mine under the blanket. At first, I thought it was accidental, just another one of those casual touches I'd spent years overanalyzing. But then his fingers lingered, curled, threaded gently between mine. I froze. Liam, my voice cracked, half a whisper, half a plea. He squeezed my hand, not looking at me. You ever get tired of pretending? The words hit harder than any thunderclap. My chest constricted. Pretending what? I asked, though I knew. God, I knew. He turned his head then, and even in the dark, I could feel his eyes on me. That it's just friendship. My breath caught, the air sharp in my lungs. I wanted to say yes. I wanted to scream it. But fear tangled every thought. Fear of ruining us, of shattering the one constant in my life. My throat tightened. I don't want to lose you. His grip on my hand tightened, firm, steady. You won't. Lightning flashed again, and this time he didn't look away. His face was closer than I realized, his expression bare in a way I'd never seen before. No jokes, no smirks, just honesty. Vulnerability. You have no idea how long I've wanted to say this, he murmured. The words trembled through me, knocking down every wall I'd built. My chest ached, my pulse racing so hard it drowned out the storm. Then say it, I whispered. He hesitated, searching my face as if making sure I was ready. And then, with a voice low and unsteady, I like you. More than I should. More than just a friend. The world seemed to still. Even the thunder faded, distant against the weight of those words. I wanted to laugh, cry, something, but all I could do was whisper back, me too. His eyes widened slightly, like he hadn't expected me to say it. Then his shoulders sagged with relief, a shaky breath escaping him. God, I thought I was insane. I thought I was going to screw everything up. I let out a broken laugh, my hand trembling in his. You and me both. Silence stretched again, but it wasn't heavy this time. It was charged, alive, filled with everything we'd both been holding back. He shifted closer, slowly, like giving me time to pull away. I didn't. His knee pressed against mine fully now, his arm brushing mine with every breath. And when his forehead dipped toward mine, my heart stuttered so hard I thought it might stop. "Tell me if I'm wrong," he whispered. "You're not." My voice shook, but it was steady enough. And then, finally, his lips brushed mine. Tentative. Testing. The lightest touch, like he was afraid the moment would shatter. But I leaned in, closing the gap, and the world tilted. The kiss wasn't perfect, hesitant, awkward in the way first kisses always are, but it was real. Warmth surged through me, grounding and electrifying all at once. When he pulled back, his hand still cradling mine, his eyes searched mine in the dark. "Okay," he breathed, a shaky laugh caught in his throat. "Okay, that actually happened." I laughed too, the sound trembling with relief and something far deeper. "Yeah, it did." For a moment we just sat there, foreheads pressed together, the storm raging outside while everything inside felt impossibly still. And in that stillness, for the first time, I wasn't afraid. When the kiss ended, neither of us moved right away. Our foreheads rested together, breaths mingling in the dark, as though letting go too quickly would undo it all. The storm still raged outside, but in here, it felt like we'd slipped into a different world entirely, one where the rules we'd lived by no longer applied. "I can't believe we actually did that," I whispered, my lips brushing his when I spoke. Liam huffed a quiet laugh. "Yeah, well, took us long enough." His tone was teasing, but his voice wavered just enough that I could hear the relief under it, the same trembling edge running through me. I leaned back just enough to see his face in the faint lightning glow. He was smiling, but there was something raw in his expression too. "Were you scared?" I asked. He let out a long breath. "Terrified. You kidding? I've been carrying this around forever, and every time I thought about saying something, I'd picture you laughing or walking away." "Walking away?" My chest tightened. "Do you really think I'd ever do that?" "I didn't want to find out," he admitted softly. Then he gave me a crooked grin, the kind that made my heart ache. "Turns out I should have just kissed you years ago." I shoved his shoulder lightly, though my hand lingered there longer than it needed to. "You don't get to act like you were the brave one here. You made me say it first." "Hey," I said, pretending. "That counts." "Barely," I shot back, but I was smiling, the kind of smile that felt impossible to hide now. The shift between us was subtle but undeniable. All the years of careful distance, of avoiding what we felt, it was gone. His hand still held mine, our fingers tangled comfortably, like they'd always belonged that way. My knee brushed his, and this time it wasn't accidental. I leaned into him and he leaned back without hesitation. "So," I said after a beat, quieter now, "what happens next?" His thumb traced small circles against my palm, a nervous habit disguised as casual. "I don't know. But I want there to be a next. With you." The weight of those words settled warmly in my chest. I'd imagined this conversation 1,000 different ways, all of them ending in disaster. But sitting here with him now, his hand steady in mine, the fear that had clung to me for so long felt almost silly. "There are gonna be challenges," I said carefully. "People might not get it." "Let them," he replied with a firmness that surprised me. Then his voice softened. "I care more about you getting it. About us." I swallowed hard, my throat tight. "Me too." The storm outside began to quiet, the thunder rolling further into the distance, but neither of us moved to break the moment. We just sat there, leaning into each other, letting the silence fill with something new, something bigger than either of us had been ready to admit before. After a while, Liam nudged me with his shoulder, a mischievous glint in his eyes. "So, does this mean I finally get to win arguments by default? Boyfriends get privileges, right?" I laughed, a sharp, giddy sound that felt too big for my chest. "Oh my God, you're insufferable." "But you like me anyway," he shot back, smug. "Unfortunately," I said, though the smile tugging at my lips betrayed me. His grin softened, melting into something more tender. He leaned in, brushing another kiss against my lips, gentle this time, certain. And when he pulled back, his voice was quiet, almost reverent. "You have no idea how good it feels to finally say it out loud." I pressed my forehead against his again, closing my eyes. "Yeah, I think I do." We stayed like that until exhaustion began to blur the edges of everything. At some point, we stretched out under the blanket, limbs tangled in a way that would have felt unthinkable yesterday but now felt inevitable. His chest rose and fell steadily against my back, his arm draped around me, anchoring me in place. For the first time in years, I wasn't restless. I wasn't lying awake wishing for something I couldn't have. I was here with him, and it was real. As sleep pulled me under, one thought lingered above all the others. this wasn't the end of anything. It was the beginning. I woke to sunlight streaming faintly through the basement window, the storm long gone. The air felt cleaner somehow, the world quieter, as though the night had wrung everything out and left only what mattered. What mattered was the warmth pressed against me. Liam's arm was still slung around my waist, his breath steady against the back of my neck. For a moment I just lay there, letting it sink in. This wasn't some dream I'd lose when I opened my eyes fully. This was real. His hand was resting against my chest like it had every right to be there, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel the need to hide how much I wanted it. Carefully, I turned in his hold until I was facing him. He was half asleep still, his hair sticking up in a dozen directions, his face softened in a way that made my chest ache. When his eyes cracked open, he smiled groggily. "Morning." I laughed softly. "You look like hell." "Wow." He yawned, pulling me closer instead of letting go. "New boyfriend, same old insults. Good to know some things don't change." The word hit me square in the chest. Boyfriend. Casual, unforced, like he'd been waiting forever to say it out loud. "You're really going to milk that word, aren't you?" I teased, though my cheeks burned. "Absolutely." His grin widened and then quieter. "Unless you don't want me to." I held his gaze, the morning light spilling across his face, and felt every wall I'd ever built crumble for good. "I do," I said simply. "I really do." Something in his expression softened then, and he kissed me again. Not tentative this time, not hesitant. Just sure. Ours. We stayed tangled together far longer than either of us meant to, until the smell of coffee from upstairs reminded us that the world still existed beyond the basement. Eventually we pulled ourselves up, though his hand found mine automatically as we climbed the stairs. It wasn't planned, it wasn't even something we talked about, it just happened. Natural. And when we reached the kitchen, still in rumpled clothes from the night before, still holding hands, it didn't feel like a secret anymore. It just felt right. Liam leaned against the counter, sipping his soda from last night. "So, what do we tell people?" I hesitated, the old fear flickering briefly. But then his thumb brushed the back of my hand, grounding me. "Whatever we want," I said. "They'll figure it out eventually." He smirked. "I vote we let them guess. Keep 'em on their toes." I laughed, shaking my head. "You're ridiculous." "Yeah, but you like me anyway." "Unfortunately," I said again, and this time he tugged me closer, pressing another kiss to my lips that tasted like soda and sunlight. We both knew challenges would come, questions, misunderstandings, the risk of shifting every piece of our friendship into something new. But as I stood there with his hand warm in mine, his grin tugging me toward him like it always had, the fear didn't feel so big anymore. Because we weren't pretending anymore. Because this was ours. Later, when we stepped outside into the bright, rain-washed morning, he nudged me with his shoulder. "Bet you still couldn't pitch a tent." I smirked, lacing our fingers tighter. "Bet you still snore like a chainsaw." The banter was the same, but the weight behind it wasn't. Every joke, every glance, every touch meant more now. As we walked down the driveway side by side, the air fresh and the sky clear, I realized that this wasn't just the end of a storm. It was the start of something bigger, something lasting. And for the first time, I wasn't afraid of what came next. What did you think of Liam and I finally admitting our feelings after all those years? Would you have confessed sooner, or waited until the storm forced the truth out? If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more heartfelt love stories. Your support means the world and helps us keep creating these moments for you.